After an entire season of building up both Mark and Mark's desperate attempts to save his wife, Gemma, Severance Season 2 delivered a shocking twist. Mark successfully frees Gemma from the testing floor, only to leave her behind the moment she's safe, choosing instead to escape with Helly. But this wasn't Mark's decision. It was entirely Mark's. Earlier in the episode, the two versions of Mark exchanged video messages, strategizing how they could work together to get Gemma out. In a scene that mirrors Mark's frantic dash through Lumon's corridors in the season premiere, he and Helly now race down the halls, alarms blaring as security scrambles to stop them. Meanwhile, chaos erupts on multiple fronts. Gemma, now free, is left bewildered by Mark's sudden departure. Milchick, thrown off his game, loses control of MDR right in the middle of his elaborate marching band celebration for Mark finishing the Cold Harbor file. Dylan remains the only MDR worker still trapped in Lumon's grip after the others, including Irving, make their escape. Outside Lumon, Cobel and Devon anxiously await updates, unaware of the turmoil unfolding inside. The episode also unveils a disturbing truth about the enigmatic Cold Harbor room. Here, yet another severed version of Gemma is subjected to a cruel test, disassembling a crib meant for the child she and Mark never had, all while James Egan observes from a monitor, ensuring she exhibits no emotional response. While this revelation provides some long-awaited answers, including confirmation that the mysterious goats are in fact part of ritualistic animal sacrifices, it also raises a flood of new questions, leaving Severance fans with more mysteries than ever. Here are the biggest burning questions we have at the end of Severance Season 2. What exactly are Mark and Helly planning? Well, that's the problem. They don't seem to have one. At the end of Season 2, Mark makes a shocking decision. Instead of escaping with Gemma and reuniting with her in the outside world, he chooses to stay inside Lumon and run toward Helly. Why? Because he knows the truth. Once he steps outside, his innie is gone forever. Mark would wake up, find his wife alive, and never return to the severed floor, meaning innie Mark would cease to exist. Helly is facing the same dilemma. If she leaves, she snaps back into Helena Egan, the Lumon heiress, who has zero reason to ever return. So, in their minds, staying inside Lumon is better than disappearing entirely. But here's the problem. What now? They have no real plan, no clear escape route, and no idea how to survive inside Lumon. Mark has already sabotaged the Cold Harbor mission, so what will Lumon do with him? And Helly? The Egan family won't just let their future leader run free. It's a thrilling, emotional choice. But it's also a ticking time bomb. How long before their adrenaline-fueled escape turns into a full-blown nightmare? So, what does this mean for Gemma? The finale leaves Gemma in one of the most heartbreaking positions possible. She's free, or at least she's no longer trapped in the testing floor. But she's also alone, confused and devastated after watching innie Mark, the severed version of her own husband, run off with Helly instead of staying with her. The biggest problem, what now? She's out of Lumon's basement, but she still has to find a way out of the building. Can she just walk through the front doors? Probably not. So where does she go? Home? To Devon's? And even if she does make it out, what's stopping Lumon from tracking her down and dragging her back? And then there's the emotional side of things. Gemma doesn't know innie Mark. She's only ever known her husband's outie self, the man who mourned her for years. So to her, watching Mark choose another woman over her, especially in such a desperate moment, is gut-wrenching. But what happens if she recognizes that woman? If Gemma has ever come across Helena Egan at Lumon, she might realize exactly who Mark ran off with. At this point, Devon could be instrumental in helping her get to safety. Cobel, too, might have a role to play, whether as an ally or an obstacle. But before any of that, Gemma has to escape Lumon for real, and that's the biggest question. Will she actually get out, or is Lumon already closing in to take her back? Is Mark stuck between two lives? When Mark started the reintegration process with Rig Harvey in Episode 3, it felt like a major turning point, like we were about to see innie Mark and outie Mark merge into one person. But by Episode 4, as the refiners were thrown into that brutal winter retreat, it became clear that the process wasn't as immediate or as game-changing as we expected. So, what actually happened? Well, aside from a few fleeting moments of connection, Mark's two halves are still very much separate, and the best proof of that? Their camcorder conversation at Devon's birthing retreat. Innie Mark wants one thing, to free Gemma. Outie Mark promises that he'll finish the reintegration process once she's safe, even saying, "This life belongs to both of us." But innie Mark sees right through it. His outie has no intention of fully merging because for outie Mark, reintegration means losing control. But this raises an even bigger question. What does finishing the process even mean? Are there more procedures involved? Can the reintegration Mark already started be undone? Or if he just keeps living like this, will the merging never actually happen? So far, no one has ever been successfully reintegrated. We saw what happened to Petey: headaches, paranoia, and eventually death. Mark doesn't know the full consequences, and neither do we. So will he actually reintegrate? Or is he destined to remain two people fighting for control over the same life? Why wasn't Lumon's testing floor more secure? For a company as ruthless and controlling as Lumon, you'd expect the testing floor, where their most valuable asset, Gemma, was kept, to be heavily guarded. But instead, Mark's infiltration felt surprisingly easy. The only real resistance, Sandra Bernhardt's nurse character, who, rather than putting up much of a fight, just shouted F and bolted. Sure, she had a gun aimed at her by a desperate outie Mark, but still, where was the actual security? We know Milchick was trapped in the bathroom and everything at Lumon was already spiraling out of control. But does that really justify the lack of guards patrolling such a critical area? Is it hubris? Did Lumon assume no one would ever get this far? Or is it a lack of resources? Maybe the company is spread too thin, trying to maintain order across all its sinister operations? Or could it be something even deeper? Did someone on the inside make sure Mark's path to Gemma was clear? If so, who and why? How did Lumon fake Gemma's death and take her? Here's the thing, we still don't really know. Episode 7 gave us some huge reveals about Mark and Gemma's past, but the exact details of her disappearance still a mystery. We don't know what actually happened the night of Gemma's supposed car crash, the crash that Audie Mark was forced to accept as real because he identified her body at the morgue. So, how is she alive? What did he actually see? It's becoming more and more clear that Mark and Gemma were being watched long before her disappearance. They visited a Lumon-run blood drive and fertility clinic, and Gemma showed interest in Lumon's literature, even reviewing materials from optics and design. Were they being targeted, groomed? But the biggest question, how did Lumon pull off a cover-up this massive? How did they make it look like she died in a car accident while secretly keeping her alive and sending her to the severed floor? Was there a body double, a forged autopsy? Or does Lumon have far more control over the outside world than we even realize? Why were Mark and Gemma chosen for this experiment? That's the million-dollar question, why them? We know that Gemma is critical to Lumon's research, considering her severed identities are being tested and refined by none other than her own husband, Innie Mark. But what made them the perfect candidates for this disturbing experiment? One clue? Their history with Lumon goes back further than we thought. Mark and Gemma met at a Lumon-run blood drive in college. Was that just a coincidence, or had Lumon orchestrated their entire relationship from the start? It's clear that Mark was always meant to be a part of this experiment, but why? Did Lumon choose him because of his grief, his vulnerability? And did they take Gemma because she was willing, or because she was the perfect test subject? The real question is, was this ever really a random experiment, or have Mark and Gemma been pawns in a much bigger Lumon agenda all along? Is Milchick truly loyal to Lumon? At first glance, Milchick seems like the ultimate Lumon company man. Loyal, disciplined, and willing to do whatever it takes to keep order. But Season 2 adds some cracks to that image. For one, he's clearly ambitious, but his unease at how the Lumon board treats him suggests he might not be as devoted as we once thought. Take his so-called promotion in Episode 3. A painting of Keir Egan depicted as a black man. It's an uncomfortable reward, and when he tries to bring it up to Natalie, the board liaison, she shuts him down completely. Then there's Drummond's repeated humiliation of Milchick forcing him to apologize for using big words until finally Milchick snaps and fires back, "Devour feculence, it means eat shit, Mr. Drummond." Yet even after all of this, Milchick still fights tooth and nail to stop Mark from saving Gemma. Is that true loyalty to Lumon, or just a desperate attempt to hold on to his own position? His investment in the Cold Harbor Project's success seems more about his own ambitions than any deep allegiance to the Egan family. So is Milchick a true believer, or just another careerist? Where does Miss Cobel stand? Will she overthrow Lumon from the outside? Miss Cobel has always been one of the most enigmatic figures in Severance, ruthless, calculating, and somehow always one step ahead. But by the end of Season 2, it's clear she's no longer just a Lumon loyalist. Despite her deep ties to the company, from being a child labourer at Lumon to developing Severance technology herself, Cobel made a bold move. She helped Mark rescue Gemma. But why? Does she genuinely want to take Lumon down, or is she simply playing her own long game? The big question now is, can Lumon win her back? As much as she's turned against the company, is there anything they could offer her, power, recognition, revenge, that might pull her back in? Or has she finally crossed the point of no return, and is fully committed to bringing the whole operation down? Cobel's next move is anyone's guess, but one thing is clear. She's not done yet. What is the true purpose of Severance? From the very beginning, Severance has teased that Lumon's experiments extend far beyond simple workplace productivity. But Season 2 has given us the clearest hints yet at the company's true, sinister agenda. The severed birthing cabin, first mentioned in Season 1, reveals a disturbing truth. Severance isn't just about office labor, it's about outsourcing pain itself. Wealthy outies like the senator's wife Devon encounters use severance to force their innies to experience childbirth for them, a brutal separation of body and mind for the sake of convenience. Then there's Gemma's Cold Harbor innie, who is programmed to feel nothing as she dismantles a baby's crib. When Dr. Mauer observes the barrier is holding, it suggests that severance can now completely erase trauma, creating a subclass of humans who can endure suffering without consequence. And that brings us back to Helena Egan's chilling words to Helly in Season 1. I'm a person, you are not. The Egans and Lumon's elite see the severed not as employees, but as disposable beings, ones who can be exploited, controlled, and sacrificed, all while their outies live free of guilt. So what's Lumon's endgame? If severance can be applied beyond just work and birth, how far will they push it? And more importantly, who will stop them? Is Irving gone for good? Bert's final act of kindness, handing Irving a one-way train ticket to an unknown destination, seemed like an attempt to protect him from Lumon's grasp. But with Irving holding potentially dangerous knowledge about the company, it's unlikely they'll just let him disappear. Throughout Severance, Irving's subconscious has been obsessed with painting the exports hall over and over again, a detail that still hasn't been fully explained. Did he go down to the testing floor before? Is there something buried in his memories that could be crucial to bringing Lumon down? Ben Stiller told Variety that Irving's story is complete for now, but that doesn't necessarily mean we've seen the last of him. If Irving does return, it could be as one of Lumon's biggest threats, or its next victim. What's next for Dylan? Dylan has always been the heart of MDR, but as the Season 2 finale unfolds, he's left behind, while the others make their moves. With Irving gone and Mark and Helly running through Lumon's halls, Dylan finds himself isolated and vulnerable. After his tense standoff with Milchick, Dylan has proven he's willing to fight back, but will he get the chance? If Mark and Helly don't find a way to protect him soon, Dylan might be Lumon's next target. And beyond survival, his biggest motivation remains unchanged, finding a way to be with his outie's wife, Gretchen. But with the severance system still fully intact, the question remains, will he ever get the chance? And what's the deal with the baby goats? Since their eerie introduction in Season 1, the baby goats have remained one of Lumon's strangest mysteries. Initially, they appeared in a secret room where a cryptic employee insisted they were not ready to leave. But in Season 2, Episode 3, we finally got a clear, yet still baffling glimpse into their purpose. As Mark and Helly, undercover as Helena, ventured deeper into Lumon's labyrinthine halls, they discovered Mammalian's Nurturable, a bizarre and isolated department filled with more goats and employees who spoke in an unsettlingly archaic, almost cult-like manner. It turns out that the goats are sacrificial animals, tied to Lumon's twisted spiritual practices. One particular goat, Emil, was meant to be sacrificed as part of Gemma's Cold Harbor test, believed to guide her spirit to Kier. However, Mark and Lorne intervened, freeing Emil just before the ritual could be completed. What remains unclear is how many goats have already been sacrificed and for what exact purpose. Are they purely ceremonial, or do they play a deeper role in manipulating severed employees, perhaps by fostering emotional attachment, much like Lumon's other psychological tactics? Given that Gemma appears to be one of Lumon's most significant test subjects, it's possible that countless goats have already been sacrificed for similar experiments. But until more is revealed, the goats remain one of Severance's most unsettling enigmas. What's next for Miss Huang? In the penultimate episode of Season 2, Miss Huang is abruptly graduated from the severed floor, marking a major turning point in her trajectory at Lumon. Milchick informs her that her Wintertide Fellowship has ended, sending her off with an unsettling ritual. She must make a material sacrifice by smashing her beloved ring toss game with a bust of Kier Egan. While this may seem like a promotion, the details remain cryptic. Huang is set to relocate from her parents' home to the Gunnel Egan Empathy Centre in Svalbard, Norway, where she will supposedly work to steward global reforms. A vague and ominous assignment. The real question is, what does Lumon have planned for her? We know that Miss Cobel followed a similar path, starting as a child labourer at a Lumon ether factory, then progressing through Wintertide before climbing into management. If history repeats itself, Miss Huang could be groomed for a higher leadership role within the company, or conversely, she could become another victim of Lumon's relentless control. Is she truly moving up the corporate ladder, or is she just stepping deeper into Lumon's psychological grip? With all these burning questions left unanswered, Severance continues to weave a deeply unsettling yet fascinating mystery. The Season 2 finale didn't just escalate the stakes, it shattered the boundaries of what we thought we understood about Lumon, the Severance procedure, and the people trapped within its walls. Mark, Helly, Irving, Dylan, Gemma, and even Cobel and Milchick are all at turning points in their stories, leaving us to wonder where their choices will lead them next. Will Mark ever reconcile his two identities? Can Gemma truly escape, or is she still under Lumon's control? And with Helly and Mark's innies refusing to disappear, what will Lumon do to maintain its hold over them? The show's deeper themes, identity, free will, and corporate exploitation, have never been more relevant, making the wait for the next season all the more agonizing. As we wait for Severance to return, one thing is certain. Lumon's secrets run deeper than we ever imagined, and the true purpose of Severance may be far more disturbing than we're prepared for.